All right, guys, today we're going to start learning how to use Onshape. It's another 3D modeling software similar to Inventor. We're going to be using it since it is online. It's going to be a little bit easier than trying to get us all getting Inventor installed on our local machines. And so in order to get us up to speed, we're just going to go through and kind of relearn some of the stuff we've looked at before. You'll find often when you're doing tech related stuff that you'll have to learn a new tool. And if you already know how to use one, you'll find that a lot of that knowledge maps over very, very readily. So we're just going to go back through some of the simple exercises we did in Inventor and see how Onshape is a little bit different, but a lot of the things are very similar. So once you get logged in, get your account set up and get logged in, you'll see a screen like this. You won't have any stuff in the center yet because you haven't designed anything yet. The first thing that we're going to want to do is change our units. Now, in Inventor, we keep having to go back and change them for every document, but in Onshape, we can actually do it globally. So you're going to come over to your account here, check on that, go to your account. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that you can fiddle around with. The most important thing we're going to look at is preferences. Display language, I have mine set to English because I can read English the best. If you prefer another language, go ahead and fiddle around with it. But we're going to leave that alone for now. Length units, I'm going to change mine to centimeters. We have a whole bunch of different options. Centimeters is typically what we're going to be using. You can also choose the number of decimal places to display. We'll leave that alone for now. We'll leave angle units in degrees. We're going to change our mass units to kilograms. And we'll leave our time format the same. If you particularly like 24-hour time, you can choose to change it here. So once you've done that, hit Save Changes. That will change your default units for all new designs that you make. Now you can still choose to have individual designs use different units if you really love inches and miles and slugs and hogsheads and whatever. But this will make it easier so you don't have to change it every single time. Now, having done that, we are going to go ahead and go back to the main area, and we're going to start with a simple design that we've already made, our origami hearts. So I'm going to go back to the main thing by clicking on the Onshape logo at the top left here. And that brings me back to kind of my general main window. Now, when you're going to create a new design, you're going to go to the top left here to create, and you can go ahead and click on that. And there's a couple different options here. You can import files from other things. You can import Inventor files even, but we are going to go ahead and create a brand new thing. So create document. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And you give it a name. I'm going to call it origami heart. And I'm going to call mine origami heart too because I already made one as I was practicing for this, but you'll go ahead and name yours origami heart. Once you've done that, hit OK. And it's going to take a moment and think and start setting up your new window. So you'll note a couple things. You've got the name of your part up here. And then in this central window here, we have kind of our workspace. Now, when we are working in Inventor and we start up our window, we'll just see a blank space. But here we see kind of these three different planes, the front plane, right plane, and top plane. And we can kind of choose them when we're making sketches. We also have this kind of view finder up here, which lets us choose to orient ourselves. We can click on a corner to orient to a corner. You can click on an edge to kind of rotate yourself around, and you can kind of play around with it and choose exactly which way you want to be looking at things. For now, we'll leave it like this in our nice little 3D view. And the way we build parts in Onshape is very, very, very similar to Inventor. We do two-dimensional sketches, and then we convert them into 3D objects. So we're going to start with a sketch. And again, we're going to make our little heart shape that we did before. To do this, we're going to come over here to the sketch button. It's at the top left. And you're going to go ahead and click on that. So over here to the sketch button, click on sketch. And now it's asking us, you can choose a name for your sketch. We're not going to worry about that too much, but it's going to ask us for a sketch plane. Basically, where are we going to start our sketch? In Inventor, we always use the XY plane just for consistency. Here, we're going to start with the front plane. Now, if you have a particular idea for what you need to start with, and you want the front of your part to be something else, you can go ahead and choose a different plane for your first sketch. But we are going to start with the front plane almost all the time. So we choose that, and you can see it's created this little box here saying sketch one. Sketch one is like this. It's oriented right around the front plane. Now, in Inventor, once we've clicked on that, it would have taken us and zoomed in. For Onshape, it doesn't do that automatically. So you're going to have to come over here to the top right and click on this front part of it. And that's going to zoom us into our 2D view, so it's a little bit easier to do our sketching. Now, as we go forward, we're going to basically go ahead and draw half of our heart, just like we did before. We're then going to mirror it about this axis here, and then we're going to go ahead and fill it in. So in order to do that, first we need our line tool. Our line tool is up here at the top left. I'm going to grab my line tool, and I'm going to start by drawing my heart in roughly, and I'll fix it as I go. So I'm going to start by basically hovering over the origin here, and you can see a little symbol next to my icon as I get close to it, and it just toggles between a couple different options. This horizontal line, this vertical line, and this kind of pickaxe looking thing. This pickaxe looking thing is basically saying that it's intersecting the origin. It's constrained to stick at that point. That's what I want here. So you hover over it so that it is kind of selected here, and make sure you've got your little pickaxe looking thing. Click on that, and now we can start dragging out our dimensions. So I'm going to put in things roughly at first, and then I will change them around with my dimensioning tool as we did before. So I'm going to start by making a nice little bottom of my heart. And as I go through and do this, you can see it's not telling me what angle I'm at, but there are different constraints that it'll give me as I go. I can snap it to kind of a vertical orientation, in which case it gives me this vertical line next to my cursor. I can snap it to kind of in a horizontal or uh, kind of orientation, in which case I have this horizontal line. You can see it kind of the bottom right of my cursor next to the number of centimeters that I'm at. Or I can snap it to 45 degrees, I can snap it to parallel to this line, all this sorts of stuff. So that just kind of helps you get an idea of what kind of the implicit constraints are. We're going to basically go ahead and make this vertical. So I'm kind of snapping it vertically. You can see it has that vertical line next to it. And then I'm going to just kind of make the rest of my heart any old way. And just to kind of highlight things, I'm going to make sure you can see that it kind of snaps the center of my heart to this vertical axis. That's good. And I'm going to just put it anywhere, and we're going to sort things out later in terms of dimensions. So having done that, now it still wants me to continue. You can just hit escape to get out of making a new line. So I'm going to do that now. And now I have part of my heart. The next thing I want to do is constrain it. I want to give it dimensions. And so our dimensioning tool is up here in the top middle of your screen. And the way it works is very similar. You can select it and you can choose an edge to dimension. If you choose an edge, you're basically going to only be able to choose the length of that thing. You're not going to be able to, in Inventor, you could pull straight down and just get for instance, the horizontal length of it, or you could pull to the left and just get the vertical length of it. Here, if you choose the whole line, you can only dimension the total length of it. That's not quite going to work for me, because what I want to do is explicitly constrain the horizontal width of this and the vertical width. So I'm going to hit escape and undo that. The other way you can dimension things is, again, go to your dimension tool, and I'm going to dimension between points. So you can see you can either hover over a line and that whole line will turn orange, in which case you're dimensioning that whole line, or you can hover over a point. If you hover over a point, you're going to select your start point and your end point, and then you can kind of constrain between them. So I'm going to choose my starting point here, and then the next point I want to dimension between is going to be this point here. You can see I hover over that, that turns orange. I'll click on it. And now I can pull to the left and tell it how tall I want this to be, or I could pull straight down and say how wide I want it to be, or I could pull diagonally and choose just the total length of this line segment. So I'm going to start by choosing kind of the horizontal width of this. And you can see my units are centimeters, because up here I had changed my default units to centimeters. Let's call it, I don't know, 3 centimeters wide. Why not? And then again, I want to choose my height for this. So I'm going to choose to dimension between that point and this point again. And let's make that also 3 centimeters. And now you can see that this chunk in here is really, really small. That makes it really, really hard to see. Well, we can zoom in easily using our mouse wheel. So you just zoom in, and I'm going to dimension that height there. For this, I'm just going to choose the whole line segment because I want this thing to be vertical anyway. And if I zoom back out, you can kind of choose that. And also too, you may find you want to pan around to kind of reorient yourself. If you click and hold your middle mouse button or your mouse wheel, you can click and drag yourself around. So you click your middle mouse wheel and move yourself around, and then let go, and you'll have panned to wherever you want. I'm going to set this dimension down, and I'm going to constrain this to be, say, 1.5 centimeters tall. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit and pan around a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of move this dimension down so it's not so far off the screen. So I still have a few things left to do. I'm going to want to choose the height of this. So let's go ahead and do that. I want, again, the vertical height there. So let's make that, I don't know, 1 centimeter for now. And I want this segment to kind of end along the same line as this. So I'm going to constrain that total height here as well to be 1 centimeter as well. So now these guys are kind of going to end in the same line. And then the last couple things I want to do are figure out how wide these are going to be. I want them to be the same as each other. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just make them also 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter. And you'll see as I'm doing this, all these dimensions look, they're not necessarily the prettiest in terms of display, right? They're just kind of all over each other. And part of that is because this is just for defining our shape. Right now, we don't care too much about final display. This is just for constraining things. So now we have kind of part of our shape done, and we need to mirror it. An inventor would use the mirror tool. There is an identical tool here called, guess what? The mirror tool. It's also kind of in the top middle of your screen. You'll see it here, and it looks like a shape being mirrored around another shape. Awesome. So you can go ahead and click on that, and it's going to ask you to select a mirror line. Now, if you remember back to when we did this in Inventor, we used a construction line. We can do a similar thing in here, but we can also use the axes of our planes as mirror lines as well. So I'm going to choose to mirror around this vertical axis here. You can see it turns orange as I hover over it. So I'm going to choose that line. And now it wants me to select the entities to be mirrored. I can click on them individually, or I can click and drag and just select everything. So if I do that, it goes ahead and mirrors everything around. And then I'm done with my mirror operation, which is pretty cool. So once you're done with all your mirroring stuff, you can go ahead and click on the mirror tool to stop worrying about it. And you can see we have our whole thing. Now, if I wanted to fiddle around with the dimensions, I can just change dimensions of one part on the left here, and it'll get mirrored over to the right. So let's go ahead and make this, instead of 1.5 centimeters, why not 1 centimeter? Yeah, and then we can see it immediately change. If I wanted to make this, say, instead of 3 centimeters, I could make it 2.5, and then boom. And so it all changes like that. So that's how we get our mirroring done. Now our next step is going to be to turn this two-dimensional shape into a three-dimensional shape. Obviously, if I go and look at my 3D view, this is just a little paper-thin heart. I want to turn it into something 3D. So go ahead and finish your sketch. To finish your sketch, you're going to click on the green check mark here. So that's completed our sketch. We just have this nice little heart here. And we need to extrude our sketch into a three-dimensional object. The extrude tool is at the top left up here, and you can go ahead and click on it. And it's just going to default to using all of the faces in your last sketch. Or you can just click on what you want to extrude. Now, it's hard to see, right, because we're in a two-dimensional view. So if I go to a three-dimensional view using my viewfinder up here, and again, I'm just kind of clicking on the pieces of that viewfinder that I want to orient myself around. So if I want to extrude, it's basically going to ask me where I want to extrude. I can click on my sketch, and boom, it's going to extrude. Just as in Inventor, we get to choose the depth of our extrusion. So I'm going to choose to make it only 1 centimeter thick. And if you click somewhere else, it'll go ahead and do that. And that looks about right to me. That seems reasonable. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now that I've done that, I can kind of look at my handiwork and hey, it's all done. Now, if you wanted to go back and say, hey, this shape doesn't look quite right, I want to kind of reorient it a little bit. You can go back and change your sketch, and then it will automatically be updated in the extrusion. So I can show you. You can go to your sketch, hover over here in this browser on the left, double click on sketch one, and you'll go back into edit mode for this sketch. I could decide that, hey, this heart is too wide. I want to make it a little thinner. I'm going to make it only 2.5 centimeters wide. Hell, let's make it even thinner than that. Let's make it 2, so it's really obvious that we've changed it. And you can see that our heart's starting to look a little bit wonky up here because of things. But if I hit my check mark, you can see that now my three-dimensional object looks like this. And I can go back into my sketch, and I can change it back to what it was before, and hit done, and boom, my three-dimensional object is updated. So that's basically how we go through and create a simple three-dimensional object in Onshape.